I pushed a veteran's wheelchair off the loading dock into the loading truck shadow, not knowing the admiral watching from the catwalk above would rewrite my future in ways that would haunt every goddamn sunset. That old man, General Harlan Hank Whitaker, wheezed his last secret into my ear as the paramedics swarmed. Your boy's the devil in navy blues. Rosie, don't let him skate. And just like that, with one gravelly breath from a dying fool, I was back in the crosshairs of a betrayal I'd buried under 5 years of concrete and regret, ready to drag my ex-husband's empire into the abyss with me. It was a sweltering July afternoon in 2018, the kind where the Mississippi air clings to your skin like a bad divorce settlement. Biloxi wasn't the glittering casino strip they sold on postcards. It was a humid hellhole of strip malls, meth labs, and forgotten warriors shuffling through the Gulf Coast Veterans Affairs Medical Center like ghosts in hospital gowns. I'd been out of federal lockup for 6 months, my parole officer breathing down my neck about reintegration, which mostly meant slinging bedpans and dodging questions about the tattoo on my wrist, a faded anchor I'd gotten with Jake on our honeymoon in Key West. Rose Whitaker, née Harlan, no relation to the general. Thank Christ, 33 and fresh off a stretch for manslaughter. Except it wasn't mine. Jake's. But love's a blind bitch. And I'd sworn on a stack of Bibles it was self-defense gone wrong in a bar fight over nothing. The judge bought it. Or at least pretended to. Because who wants to crucify a vet's widow for avenging her man's honor? Jake walked free. Got a promotion in the Navy's procurement office. And I got the bars. Pushing wheelchairs was my penance. Or so Sister Mary Agnes at the halfway house called it. Service redeems. Rose, she'd say, her rosary clicking like a metronome while I nodded and choked down lukewarm oatmeal. Truth was, it kept me close to the ghosts. Hank Whitaker was one of them, 82, riddled with Agent Orange regrets from Nam, and sharp as a bayonet when the morphine wore off. His son, Captain Jacob Jake Whitaker, USN, was the golden boy of the Gulf Fleet, schmoozing admirals and lining pockets with black market deals on submarine parts.
Idee met Jake in 2010.
During my own stint in the reserves, me, a supply clerk from Gulfport with dreams bigger than my daddy's shrimp boat. He was all pressed whites and easy grins, whispering about white picket fences in Coronado while we stole weekends in motel rooms off base. We married in a shotgun chapel in Vegas. Him promising the stars. Me believing every lie because his touch felt like home. The secret Hank spilled that day? It cracked the foundation. Jake hadn't just offed that poor bastard in Pensacola over a botched arms deal. He'd framed me to cover a deeper rot. The manslaughter? A mid-level supplier who'd gotten too mouthy about kickbacks flowing from Jake's desk to offshore accounts in the Caymans. Jake pulled the trigger in a panic, then spun the yarn that I'd done it in a jealous rage, him playing the cuckolded hero. I took the plea because the evidence was ironclad. My prints on the gun, he'd wiped his and pressed mine while I slept off the wine he'd poured. My alibi shredded by his witnesses. 5 years in Carswell, the federal women's joint in Texas. Stitching uniforms and learning that trust is just another word for target practice. Parole came early for good behavior, but the rage? That simmered like gumbo, left too long on the stove. The admiral who changed the trajectory was Elias Eli Thorne, 4 stars and a glare that could sink carriers. He was Hank's old CO, visiting from the Pentagon on some rubber chicken circuit. When he spotted me wrestling Hank's chair up the ramp, I was cursing under my breath, something about stubborn old coots and their goddamn pride, when Eli's town car idled up, tinted windows rolling down like a judgment from on high. "Miss," he barked, voice like gravel in a blender. "You handle that chair like it's a howitzer." Ever think about putting that fire to better use? I wiped sweat from my brow. Hank muttering something filthy about brass and their clipboards. Sir, the only fire I got left is for minimum wage and not screwing up parole. But Eli laughed, a bark that echoed off the concrete, and slipped me his card. Black stock. Gold emboss. Admiral Elias Thorne. Special Projects Division. Call me. Uncle Sam's got debts to settle with girls like you. I didn't call. Not that week. But Hank's deathbed rasp gnawed at me. And Jake's Facebook flaunting his latest medal ceremony in Norfolk, him with some blonde on his arm. Toasting to new horizons, lit the fuse. 2 weeks later, I dialed. Eli answered on the first ring. Whitaker, knew you'd bite. Pack a bag. You're coming to D.C. We got a wolf in the fold, and your eyes are the only ones sharp enough to spot him. D.C. in August is a pressure cooker of power suits and Potomac humidity, the kind that makes you question why anyone fights for the swamp. Eli's Special Projects was a ghost outfit buried in the bowels of the old executive office building, officially. A think tank on veteran reintegration. Unofficially, a hit squad for rooting out corruption in the defense pipeline. Black budgets, NDAs thicker than my prison file, and a team of misfits, ex-SLS with PTSD twitches, analysts who'd sold their souls for clearances. And me, the wild card convict with a grudge. Eli called me his secret weapon, a southern girl who knew the underbelly of the beast because I'd tasted its teeth. My first assignment? Infiltrate Jake's world. Not as his ex-wife, that would have been too on the nose, but as Rosalind Roz Harlan, procurement consultant for a beltway firm Eli's outfit fronted. Jake had just been tapped for a cushy liaison role with a Virginia shipyard, overseeing contracts worth billions. The whispers? He was skimming 10% off every weld and rivet, funneling it through shell companies tied to Chinese interests. Treason light, Eli called it, but with enough juice to topple careers and ignite scandals. Get close, Eli instructed over steak at Morton's, his eyes like polished flint. Seduce if you must. But bring me proof. Rose. For Hank. For all of M. Seduce. The word hung like smoke. Jake and I hadn't spoken since the trial. His last words a hissed, "You owe me this," as the marshals cuffed me. But hate's a funny aphrodisiac. I dyed my hair auburn, traded scrubs for pencil skirts, and crashed his networking mixer at the Hay Adams. All faux Southern charm and gosh, Captain, your speech on fiscal integrity had me all aflutter. He bit. Hard, eyes widening over his bourbon like he'd seen Lazarus. Roz, Jesus, you look different. Good different. By night's end, we were tumbling into his Georgetown brownstone, my nails raking his back not from passion, but from the thrill of the con. Living the double life was a high-wire act over a pit of vipers. Mornings, I'd wake in sheets that smelled of his cologne, Aqua di Gio. Same as always, and sift through his briefcase while he showered, snapping pics of ledgers that screamed fraud. Afternoons, I'd debrief with Eli in a Starbucks near the White House. His nods curt as I spilled details. Dummy core in Delaware. Bribes disguised as consulting fees. Jake's flip-flops with suppliers, promising one deal, undercutting with another. Always one step ahead of the audits. The man was a chameleon, schmoozing senators by day, strong-arming welders by night. Controversial? Hell. He'd justify it as necessary evils for national security, flipping from patriot to profiteer with a grin. But the betrayal deepened. One night, post-coital haze, Jake rolled over and murmured, "You know why I let you take the fall."
Babe?
That Pensacola guy, he was gonna expose the whole network. Including your old man. My daddy? The shrimper who drowned in a freak storm off Horn Island when I was 20? Jake's eyes gleamed in the dark. He was in on the skim.
Rosie. Small time.
Dipping into supply runs for diesel. I cleaned it up. For us. Lie or truth. It twisted like a knife. Daddy's boat had engine trouble that night. Official report said mechanical failure. But whispers in Gulfport bars always hinted at sabotage. Had Jake drowned him to protect our future? I played along.
Cooing sympathies.
But inside, the rage bloomed black. Eli's pressure mounted. We're close.
Rose.
One more thread. But Jake was flipping again, suddenly paranoid. Tails on his tail. Anonymous tips to his CO about internal leaks. I caught him burning files in the fireplace one dawn. His face a mask of calculation. Trust no one.
Roz.
Not even family. Family. The word stung. We'd filed the divorce quietly while I was inside. He kept the house. I kept the shame.
Now.
Here I was, playing house again. My parole hanging by the thread of his whims. The first crack came in October, during a hurricane briefing at the Navy Yard. Jake pulled me aside, breath hot against my ear. Eli Thorne's using you.
Babe.
That Admiral gig? It's a setup. He's gunning for my old man. Hank's estate has docs that tie Thorne to the same scams back in the 90s. You push this. You burn us all.
Flip.
Now Eli was the villain? I laughed it off. But doubt crept in like humidity through a cracked window. Eli had been too eager. Too paternal. Gifts of pearl earrings for the girl who deserved better. Late-night calls laced with bourbon confessions about his own sins in Panama. Was I the pawn in a brass-on-brass grudge match? I confronted Eli that night in his McLean study. Rain lashing the windows like accusations. Jake says you're dirty. Admiral says Hank had the dirt. Eli's face didn't flinch, just poured 2 scotches.
Neat.
Boy's half right.
Rose.
I covered for his daddy once.
Yes.
But Jake? He's the cancer.
And you?
You're the cure. He slid a dossier across the desk. Photos of Jake with triad reps in Macau. Wire transfers to accounts I'd seen him check on his phone. Proof undeniable. But the kicker? A faded coroner's report on my daddy's drowning, tampered logs. A payout from Jake's early slush fund. He didn't just frame you for the hit. He erased your bloodline to climb. That was the hook that sank deep. I left Eli's with the file clutched like a grenade. Jake waiting at home with takeout from founding farmers and that boyish smile. Missed you.
Roz.
What's next for us?
Us.
As if. I smiled back. Fork spearing lo mein. Mind mapping the push. November brought frost to the cherry blossoms early. Unnatural. Like the chill settling in my bones as Jake's web tightened. DC's fall was a facade of turning leaves and power walks to K Street. But underneath?
Rot.
I'd always known it. From the bayous where gators feasted on the weak to the hill. Where lobbyists fed on taxpayer dreams. Jake thrived there. A southern fried operator with a drawl that disarmed and deals that destroyed. Our reconciliation was a powder keg, every pillow talk unearthed more bile. He'd flip from tender to tyrannical, 1 minute crooning Springsteen in the shower. The next grilling me about old flames with eyes like a polygraph needle. Eli's team ramped up. Bugs in Jake's Audi. Drones over his weekend sails on the Chesapeake. I played the doting consultant, lunching with his execs at the Monocle, eavesdropping on whispers of ghost bids and off-book manifests. The antagonist in my head wasn't just Jake anymore. It was the system that birthed him, the revolving door of admirals to boardrooms, where loyalty was liquid and ethics evaporated like morning fog. Controversial decisions? Jake embodied them. He'd justify laundering through vet charities. Hell, Rosie, those boys need prosthetics more than Uncle Sam needs audits, even as the skim starve supply lines, leaving grunts short on Kevlar. The secret I bore? It metastasized. Turns out, Daddy wasn't just dipping. Jake had recruited him years back, during my reserves days, promising easy money for falsified fuel logs on training runs. When Daddy balked, too God-fearing for the deep end, Jake arranged the accident. A doctored carburetor. A squall called in from a bot meteorologist. My taking the fall for Pensacola? Just the encore. I did it for you, Jake confessed one whiskey-soaked night, his head in my lap like a contrite pup. To keep us clean. Your record was spotless, mine. Complicated. Flip again, villain to victim. Tears salting the lie. I stroked his hair, humming Thunder Road, but my free hand itched for the Beretta Eli had slipped me, unregistered and cold. Parole was a noose. One slip, assault charge, weapons possession, and I'd be back in Carswell. This time for 20. Eli knew it. Dangled immunity, like candy. Play ball. Rose. And we'll expunge the slate. Presidential pardon if it comes to that. But Jake's paranoia peaked. He started tailing me. His buddy, a burly ex-Marine named Tuck, lurking in dive bars near my office. I spotted him once, nursing a bud at the Dubliner, his meaty paw drumming the bar. Captain sends regards, he grunted when I approached. All faux casual. Says you're glowing. New gig treating you right? I played dumb. Ordered a Jameson. But inside? Storm clouds. The lurch came mid-month. At a black tie gala for the Naval Heritage Society, crystal chandeliers in the Smithsonian, brass polishing egos over caviar. Jake was in his element. Ribbon rack gleaming. Arm around a senator's aide with tits like guided missiles. I cornered him in the coat room, silk gown whispering accusations. We need to talk.
Jake.
About Daddy. His face drained, pale as a recruit's first tattoo, before the mask snapped back. Old news.
Babe.
Water under the bridge. Or should I say, under the boat. Cruelty.
Pure.
But then the flip. He grabbed my wrist, thumb pressing the anchor ink, voice dropping to that velvet menace. Eli's dossier? I know about it. He's got nothing but smoke. Walk away.
Roz.
We rebuild. You.
Me.
A house in Annapolis. Kids.
Kids.
The word was a gut punch. We'd tried once. Before the trial, miscarriage at 12 weeks. Me blaming stress. Him blaming bad timing. Now, it dangled like bait. I yanked free, storming into the night, heels clicking on Constitution Avenue like gunfire. Eli was waiting in his Lincoln, engine idling under the shadow of the Lincoln Memorial, irony thick as the fog. He offered the apple, the Admiral guessed, passing a flask. I nodded, swigging rye that burned like truth. Then it's time.
Rose.
The push. The plan was surgical. Leak the dossier to Jake CO at a 0600 briefing, timed with an IRS raid on his Cayman links. I'd plant the final nail, a thumb drive in his safe, cloned from Eli's servers, with audio of Jake boasting to Tuck about the Whitaker way, skim or sink. But controversy brewed. Eli's team included a whistleblower, Lena, a sharp-eyed auditor who'd lost her brother to faulty gear, Jake Skim. Indirectly, she cornered me pre-op. This takedown? It guts the whole pipeline. Thousands of jobs. Rosie. Vets on the street. Flip the script. Jake the necessary evil. Eli the zealot torching bridges. I wavered, staring at my reflection in the safe house mirror, hollow cheeks, eyes like spent casings. Was I avenging Daddy? Or just clawing back a life Jake stole? Dawn broke gray over Arlington, the op kicking off with precision. I slipped the drive during Jake's morning jog, him pounding the towpath, oblivious as I bumped into him with coffee and a kiss. For luck, I murmured, palming the fob. By noon, feds swarmed his office, badges flashing like Judgment Day. Jake called frantic, "Roz, what the hell? Thorne's behind this. Tell me you're not." I let it ring, watching from a coffee shop across K Street, heart hammering like a jackhammer. The arrest went live on CNN, Captain Whitaker, cuffs glinting under cameras. No comment, but a glare that promised hell. Elation? Fleeting. Eli threw a quiet wake at his club, cigars and single malts. Toasts to justice served. But as the scotch flowed, cracks showed. Lena cornered us again. You know those offshore accounts? Half-funded vet startups. Jake's Skim built homes for Purple Hearts. Eli waved her off. Collateral. Kid, but her words wormed in. Jake's flips weren't just survival, they were a warped patriotism. Greasing wheels, so the machine didn't seize. My push had idled it. Sure. But at what cost? Letters flooded my inbox, anonymous. From shipyard workers. Captain was crooked, but he fought for us. You ruined good men. Jake's trial loomed in December. A circus of leaks and pundits. Fox called him a scapegoat for deep state sins. MSNBC. A traitor in stars and stripes. I testified under immunity, voice steady as I detailed the drownings, the frame, the files. Jurors shifted, some nodding fury, others pity for the fallen hero. Jake took the stand, flipping one last time. Rose was my anchor.
Folks.
She snapped that night in Pensacola, jealousy.
Booze.
I covered for her, begged the DA for mercy. This, Thorne's vendetta. Gasps rippled. My lawyer objected.
But the seed planted. Doubt.
Had I gaslit myself all these years? Intermission came brutal. Parole board hauled me in, violation whispers from Tuck, who'd lawyered up and sung about my involvement. Eli pulled strings, but the damage stuck. Curfew reinstated. Job yanked. Alone in a studio off U Street, walls closing like cell bars, I stared at Daddy's old Zippo, etched with Harlan blood runs true. True? Or toxic? The climax brewed on Christmas Eve, snow dusting the Capitol like ash. Jake's bail hearing, out on $1 million. House arrest pending appeal, coincided with Eli's holiday briefing. He summoned me to the EOB. Bourbon in hand. One more push.
Rose.
Testify to the flip the Macau meets. Bury him. But as I nodded, my burner buzzed. Jake's voice. Slurred and desperate. Roz.
Meet me.
Lincoln Memorial. Midnight. I got proof. Thorne's the real snake. For us. Flip or trap. Heart pounding. I grabbed the Beretta, slipping into the night. The mall was a wide-out wonderland. Tourists gone. Statues solemn under sodium glow. Jake waited on the steps. Overcoat dusted. Breath fogging like confessions. You're here, he said. No grin, just raw. Handed me a flash drive, smaller than a thumbnail. Thorne's Cuts, 90s Panama. Same playbook. He recruited me,
Babe.
to cover his ass. Lies? I press play. Audio grainy. Eli's voice barking orders to a young Jake. Skim it clean.
Son.
Or we both swim with Harlan. Daddy's name.
Proof.
My world tilted, Eli. The mentor. The paterfamilias. Architect of it all. Jake's eyes pleaded. Run with me. Cayman. New names. The decision? A razor. Shoot him. End the cycle? Or flip with the devil I knew. Snow swirled, muffling the distant carols. Controversial as hell, no heroes. Just shades of gray. I raised the gun, barrel kissing his forehead. For Daddy. His flinch was human. Finally. But the trigger? It bucked empty, Eli's gift a prop. Jammed for deniability. Jake laughed. Bitter. Knew it. We're the same. Raws. Puppets. Sirens wailed, feds closing in. Eli's trap sprung. Jake bolted. Me frozen as spotlights pinned us. The push, it recoiled, shoving me into the light. New Year's Eve 2018 dawned like a hangover, head throbbing. DC streets slick with slush and confetti regrets. The feds scooped us up in a symphony of blue lights. Jake vanishing into an SUV. Me grilled in a fluorescent box till dawn. Eli's face on the monitor. Stern as Sinai. You hesitated.
Rose.
Cost us the shot. Cost us? As if I were chattel. The drive Jake slipped me? Seized. But not before I glimpsed the metadata, timestamps from '09, predating our wedding. Eli's web. Spun long before my wheelchair push. Betrayal's echo chamber. Everyone flipping. Everyone complicit. They cut me loose by noon, thorn strings. Again, with a slap-on wrist warning. Stay clean, Whitaker. Or back to Texas.
Clean.
As if ink washed off. I holed up in U Street walk-up, blinds drawn against the fireworks popping like gunfire over the Black Cat Club. Lena visited, bearing contraband gumbo from a French quarter contact for the girl who stirred the pot. Her eyes, sharp as ever. Trial's a shit show. Jake's painting you as the vengeful ex. Thorne as the puppet master. Pundits are splitting hairs. Was it treason or tough love? Tough love. The phrase curdled. I'd borne his crime. Lost my freedom. My name. And for what? A system that chewed loyalty and spat out scandals. The trial opened in federal court. January's chill seeping through the marble halls like doubt. Jake, shackled but suited, played the prodigal, testimony laced with sir and ma'ams, flipping blame like a coin. Eli the corrupt godfather. Me the duped accomplice. Rose took the fall once for love, he drawled to the jury. All Gulf charm. But this time, she pushed me under Thorne's thumb. Gasps. Murmurs. My cross? Brutal. DA paraded the ledgers. The wires. Even a tearful vet whose kid died from subpar plating. Jake skim. Dollars over duty. Controversial calls reigned. Was exposing the admiral worth orphaning families? Jake's lawyer countered with context. Defense cuts forcing corners. Patriotism's price tag. The courtroom cleaved. Suits nodding realpolitik. Families in the gallery howling for blood. No one right. No one wrong, just America. Fractured. I took the stand midweek. Palms slick as the Bible I swore on. Captain Whitaker drowned my father, I said, voice steady as a sextant. Framed me for murder. Built his career on our graves. Jake's eyes met mine, not hate, but hunger, like he still owned the gaze. The twist dropped then, courtesy of an anonymous drop to the clerk, Eli's full ledger, leaked via Tor, detailing his Panama ghosts, bribes to Contras, kickbacks that bankrolled Jake's rise. Chaos erupted, judge banging gavel, reporters scrambling, Twitter ablaze with Admiral Gate.
Eli?
Vanished, his McLean estate dark. A posted on the gate, debts paid. Flip Supreme, the mentor, exposed as the monster. Jury deliberated 3 days. Snow blanketing the city like a shroud. Verdict, guilty on all counts: fraud, conspiracy, manslaughter accessory, but with a twist, sentencing deferred pending Eli's investigation. Jake got house arrest in Norfolk, a plea deal sweetened by his cooperation on Thorn's trail. Cooperation. He'd sung. All right, trading Eli's scalp for a lighter chain.
Me?
Immunity held. But the cost? My name in headlines, the wheelchair avenger, or betrayed bride turns Judas. Talk radio frothed, Russia's ghost calling me a feminist harpy. Progressive pods hailing the whistleblower widow. Divided. As promised. Was I hero? Hauling crooks to light? Or villain? Toppling titans and torching jobs? Spring thawed the Potomac. But not my chill. Eli surfaced in May. Not in cuffs but a plea, exiled to a ranch in Montana. For stars clipped. Pension gutted. He called from a burner. You did good. Rose. Push the rot out. Good? I laughed, bitter as chicory. You used me, Admiral. Like Jake. Like the system. Silence. Then, ain't that the American way? Borrowed time. Borrowed sins.
Click.
Jake's appeal dragged into summer. Our paths crossing at depositions, him leaner, grayer. That grin a ghost. We could have run, he murmured once, in a courthouse hallway smelling of bleach and broken dreams. Caimans. Sunsets. I met his eyes. Saw the boy from Key West buried under the bastard. Sunsets drown men. Jake. He nodded, almost wistful, before the bailiff yanked him away. The final push came unbidden. July 4th weekend. Fireworks over the National Mall. Echoes of my first DC night with Eli. A package arrived. No return. Hank's old service medal. Engraved for valor in shadows. Inside. A note in Jake's scrawl. Daddy knew. Forgave me.
Can you?
Attached? A deed. Annapolis fixer-upper. In my name alone. Reparations? Or poison pill? I burned it on the balcony. Sparks rising like freed souls. The metal melting into slag. Eli's ranch visit was impulse. A Greyhound to Billings and a rental Ford rattling dirt roads. He met me on the porch. Older in flannel. A Labrador at his heels. Knew you'd come. We talked till dusk. Panama truths. Jake's grooming. Daddy's unwitting role. I recruited him to protect the fold, Eli admitted, voice cracking like old leather. But the boy twisted it. Like we all do. No apology. Just a flask passed, to pushes that propel. I left at dawn. Montana's big sky swallowing regrets. Back in D.C. Parole lifted, full exoneration. The manslaughter plea vacated as coerced. Lena offered a gig at a vet advocacy nonprofit. Real work, lobbying for clean contracts. No shadows. I took it, trading skirts for khakis. testifying on the Hill about lessons from the brink. Jake, 5 years federal. Out in 3 with good behavior. Last I heard, he's in Biloxi, running a bait shop flipping bait. Not billions. Sends postcards. Miss the push. Roz.
I don't reply.
Was it happy? Tragic? Hell if I know.
Evoktemalna.
Free but fractured. Watching tourists snap Lincoln's stern gaze. Revenge didn't heal. It hollowed. Left me debating my own reflection. Who's the avenger? Who's the betrayed? America's like that. Grand gestures. Gray endings. We push forward. Wheels turning. Secrets churning beneath. And sometimes, in the quiet, I wonder if Hank's ghost wheels beside me, chuckling at the long con. But that's the push. And I'm still rolling.